if you see a member in bad standing or a member of the old at any time, if the doors were to pop, you have to try to kill them.
Somewhere in a federal prison, a man stabbed a corrections officer more than 200 times, then stopped, reached into the victim's shirt pocket, unwrapped a piece of gum, and kept going. 11 minutes, recorded on camera. Over 100 inmates locked nearby. Every cell had an emergency button. Nobody pressed it. These are the 6 most dangerous members of the new Mexican Mafia. And before we begin, if you want us to keep researching stories like this, please consider subscribing. We're trying to reach our first 1,000 subscribers, and every early subscriber truly means a lot. It gives us the motivation to keep making deeper, better, true crime videos for you. Now let's begin. Number 6. Miguel Negro, Berroteran. In 1991, at the outdoor weight pile of an Arizona state prison in Pima County, a man walked up to another man and hit him in the head hard enough to justify an attempted murder charge. When it was over, Miguel Berroteran raised his hands and waited for the guards. He didn't run, he just waited. That detail matters more than it sounds. His ADC number was 076611. His case number was Pima County CR 31931. The charges were attempted first-degree murder and dangerous assault by a prisoner. First-degree means the prosecution believed this was planned. Not a fight that escalated, not a moment of anger, but a decision made before he walked out to that yard. The weight pile wasn't a random location. In Arizona prisons, that outdoor space was owned, not shared. The groups with the most power controlled who used it, when, and how. Carrying out a hit there, in the open, in front of everyone, sent a message that didn't need translation. Berroteran was a member of the new Mexican Mafia. This was work. He had a co-defendant named Raymond Q. Gaitan. The first trial ended in a mistrial for Gaitan. The jury couldn't reach a verdict. The second trial convicted him of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Gaitan spent years after that trying to get out, filing post-conviction relief petitions in 2009 and 2010 before Judge Howard Hontman. Here is what Gaitan said in those filings. He said he didn't know why Berroteran attacked the victim. He thought it was going to be a regular fight. He also admitted that Berroteran almost certainly had information that could have helped his defense, testimony that might have separated Gaitan from the murder conspiracy entirely. And then Gaitan admitted he never asked for it, never pushed, never put Berroteran on the stand, because he already knew Berroteran wouldn't say a word. Not to help a friend, not to reduce his own sentence, not at any point across any hearing, any filing, any proceeding. The actual reason the victim got hit that day in 1991 was never established in court. It went in with Berroteran, and it stayed there. Gaitan got life. The truth got nothing. That is not loyalty in any way most people would recognize it. It is something colder than that. On April 17, 2018, 27 years after the weight pile, Miguel Berroteran appeared on the official hearing schedule of the Arizona Board of Executive Clemency. Same man, a DC 076611, now being reviewed for possible release. The board looks at disciplinary history across decades, participation in rehabilitation programs, and risk to the public if released. For someone carrying a first-degree murder conviction and documented ties to an active prison gang, that last category tends to do a lot of work. He had outlasted most of his generation inside. Members of rival groups had been trying to kill each other the entire time. Leaving your own gang was treated as a death sentence by the gang itself. Berroteran navigated all of that for nearly 3 decades and still made it to a clemency hearing. Whether he walked out or not, the record he left behind was consistent across 27 years of documentation. 1 conviction, 1 co-defendant destroyed, 0 statements. The man showed up, did the job, and never explained himself to anyone. Not once. Number 5. Joey Mata. On April 7, 2016, at 3:45 in the morning, a man was shot in the arm and back inside his home in Coolidge, Arizona. Despite 2 bullet wounds, he got in his car and drove himself to the police station. He told officers the shooter's name, Joey Cisney. By the time police got back to the scene, Joey Mata, who also went by Cisney, was already gone. He had stolen a vehicle with Oklahoma license plates, driven it out into the Arizona desert, and set it on fire. Then he crossed state lines and disappeared. Mata was born around 1985 in Pinal County, Arizona. By the time of the 2016 shooting, he had already served time in Arizona for aggravated assault and vehicle theft, and law enforcement had officially documented him as a member of the Arizona Mexican Mafia, meaning there was verified evidence of his gang affiliation, not just suspicion. Federal authorities caught him in Oklahoma weeks after the shooting. While there, he picked up more felony charges, carrying a firearm while on probation, attempting to outrun police, and battery. He received an 11-year sentence in Oklahoma. Arizona didn't indict him for the Coolidge shooting until December 2017, nearly 2 years later, charging him with attempted first-degree murder, assisting a criminal street gang, and weapons misconduct. He eventually came back to Arizona to face those charges, and instead of waiting in a jail cell, he was released on bond. On January 18, 2023, Mata missed a scheduled court appearance for the attempted murder charge. 4 days later, Casa Grande police pulled over his car on East 6th Street at 8 in the morning. In the vehicle, officers found 7 pounds of methamphetamine, 1.9 grams of cocaine, 3 loaded handguns, and nearly $5,000 in cash. Then there was the cashier's check. Sitting in the passenger seat was a 45-year-old woman named Brannon Pincus Magana. In her possession was a cashier's check made out in her name for $119,000. Cashier's checks don't show up in drug busts by accident. Both were charged with drug trafficking, weapons violations, and money laundering. 7 pounds of methamphetamine is not personal use. That quantity, moving through Pinal County communities, translates to thousands of individual doses, destroying people's lives one by one. Mata wasn't a corner dealer. He was operating a distribution pipeline, and Pincus Magana appears to have been handling the financial side of it. Within the Arizona Mexican Mafia, Mata was a street-level soldier, not a leader sitting in federal prison giving orders, but the kind of member who actually moves product, carries weapons, and keeps the organization's money flowing on the ground. That's the tier that does the most direct damage to communities. A documented gang member, attempted murder charges pending, felony record in 2 states, out on bond, missing court dates, caught with a drug operation worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The system had every piece of information it needed, multiple times. It still took until he was sitting in a car with 7 pounds of meth to finally put him back behind bars. Number 4. Manuel "Cricket" Medrano. In 1987, at 17 years old, Manuel Medrano walked into an Arizona juvenile detention facility for the first time. He would spend the next 20 years moving in and out of cells, graduating from juvenile hall to armed robbery charges to adult prison, before he was old enough to legally buy a drink. His street name was Cricket. Nobody explains why in the records, which is probably fine. When Medrano transferred to adult prison at 18, he already knew exactly who ran things inside. In Arizona, growing up around gangs meant growing up watching the Mexican Mafia from a distance. He described them as the elite, the legends. He wanted in. He made that known by letting the right people know he was willing to do stabbings, whatever needed to be done on the yards. That was the application process. He got in. After his first release, Medrano kept working for the organization on the outside. At the time, there were 11 members walking free in Arizona, the most since the mid-1980s. He lasted a few months before police raided his mother's house on a parole violation and sent him back. Inside, he got new instructions. There was a member who had been slipping, missing duties, using drugs, which was against the rules. Medrano was told to fix it or finish it. He got out. 4 months later, the man was dead. Medrano was arrested again shortly after, this time with a gun in his car. He took it to trial. The jury came back not guilty. He walked out of the courthouse and, in his words, basically walked straight into an FBI sting. A fellow member had turned. That member called a meeting at a hotel. Everyone showed up. They sat around and talked about murders they had committed, debts that needed collecting, business that needed handling. Every word went into a recording device the FBI had set up before anyone arrived. The same informant then arranged a fake drug deal. When it went down, agents moved in and arrested everyone present, including Medrano's partner, who was pregnant at the time. Medrano had nothing on her. He told her to go ahead and tell the cops whatever they wanted to know about him. He thought that would protect her. It did the opposite. The organization decided she was a weak link in the case. They started planning to kill her. A letter containing that plan was intercepted by federal agents. Medrano didn't believe it at first. He went back to the pod, confronted the other members, and one of them pointed at his Mexican Mafia tattoo and said the patch comes first. He told Medrano to tell her to stop talking, and everything would be fine. Then they kept planning to kill her anyway. A few weeks later, the FBI pulled Medrano aside and played him a recorded phone call.
A couple weeks later, the feds came back with more info. They had a taped phone conversation where it was being sent out.
Put her somewhere safe, and that he was ready to talk. That was the day it ended. He still had 20 years to serve for his own crimes. He served them. He was released in 2015, found his partner and their son, and moved out of state. Today he runs a nonprofit in Phoenix called Phase 2 of Life, and a YouTube channel called Chronicles. He talks to at-risk teenagers using his own story as the material, not as a cautionary tale dressed up to sound tough. Just the facts, the years, the bodies, the hotel meeting, the letter. It took him 20 years and a recorded phone call to reach that room. When he gets there, he tells the kids the same thing every time. We're not elite. We're not the legends people say we are. Number 3. Robert Charles Villalobos III. On September 7th, 2016, at 1:45 in the afternoon, inside the Pinal County Jail in Florence, Arizona, a detention lieutenant named Sergio Antolin was walking through a common area doing a routine check. He never made it out of that room on his own feet. Robert Charles Villalobos III was born in 1987 in Superior, Arizona, a small mining town in Pinal County. By 2014, at 27, he was already sitting in that same jail, waiting trial on charges of conspiracy to commit murder, robbery, and weapons violations. He never made bail. He just sat there. While he sat there, he was also grinding metal against concrete. He and 2 other inmates, Santiago Sanchez and Mauricio Moraga, broke off pieces from their own bed frames and spent days sharpening them on the floor of their cells. Guards walked past during routine checks. Nobody noticed. By September 2016, they had weapons. They also had a target. Lieutenant Antolin's job was to investigate gang activity inside the jail, tracking tattoos, intercepting coded notes, mapping connections between inmates. He was good at it. That made him a direct threat to the Arizona Mexican Mafia's operation inside that facility. So a decision was made. Villalobos, Sanchez, and Moraga were the ones chosen to carry it out. On that Wednesday afternoon, Villalobos and Sanchez cornered Antolin and stabbed him 21 times. Moraga's role was to stand between Antolin and any officer who tried to help. When a sergeant rushed in, Moraga blocked him and absorbed the blows long enough for the stabbing to finish. The sergeant eventually fought through with a baton. By then, Antolin had 21 wounds across his torso. A helicopter flew him to a trauma center. He survived. He later retired from law enforcement entirely. The trial ran in August 2017. Moraga's attorney argued the 3 men only meant to hurt Antolin, not kill him. As evidence, he pointed to the location of the stab wounds. The jury had already watched the video. They convicted all 3 on all 14 counts in the same month. On November 3rd, 2017, Robert Charles Villalobos III stood in a Pinal County courtroom, packed with law enforcement officers, and received his sentence. Life in prison, plus 106 consecutive years. The court also ordered him to pay $375,476 in restitution covering the helicopter, the surgeries, the rehabilitation, and the income Untolan lost when he was forced to retire early. Robert was 30. He was also still waiting to be tried on the original 2014 charges. In 2020, his attorney filed an appeal, specifically an Anders brief, which is the filing lawyers submit when they've reviewed every page of a case and cannot find a single argument worth making. The court reviewed everything anyway. The sentence stood. On November 20th, 2024, Arizona transferred Robert to High Desert State Prison in Indian Springs, Nevada. Maximum security. Desert. 45 minutes outside Las Vegas. No connections. No network. Nobody who owed him anything. He lasted 5 months. On April 19th, 2025, Robert Charles Villalobos III was stabbed multiple times in a common area of the prison. He was 38. The Clark County coroner ruled the cause of death as homicide by multiple sharp force injuries. Nevada authorities identified 3 to 4 suspects. The killing appeared to be gang-related. The man spent years building a reputation with a sharpened bed frame. He died the same way, in a state he'd never lived in, surrounded by people who didn't know him. He left behind a wife, a daughter, and a $375,000 debt he never paid. Number 2. Pablo Eppinger. In February 2004, federal prosecutors in New Mexico were ready to put one of Arizona's most dangerous gang leaders on trial. Then someone leaked the witness list. Threats started coming in. Court security was compromised. The government had to physically move the entire trial to a different state just to keep people from getting killed before the first day of testimony. They never figured out exactly how the leak happened. They just knew they couldn't hold the trial in New Mexico anymore. Pablo Eppinger had been running the Arizona Mexican Mafia for years by that point, coordinating drug distribution, collecting money from street gangs, and ordering violence from inside prison walls. But the thing that made him genuinely difficult to prosecute wasn't the violence. It was the silence. Every time someone got close to talking, they stopped being a problem. In 1991, a prison inmate named Thomas James was killed. Eppinger was involved. 8 years later, in the summer of 1999, 4 more people died within a few months of each other. Raul Sanchez, David Gano, Benny Hernandez, and Carol Romero. All suspected of cooperating with law enforcement. All dead before they could do much damage. The cases went cold and stayed cold for over 2 decades. Nobody talked. The system worked exactly as intended. The most unsettling entry in the federal case file involves a man named Jose Moreno Sr., who the gang believed was passing information to federal investigators. He was killed. 6 months later, his son, Jose Moreno Jr., was killed too. Not because the son had done anything, because the organization wanted to make clear what the cost of cooperation actually looked like, and they wanted that lesson to last longer than 1 generation. The 2003 RICO case brought all of this into a courtroom for the first time. Prosecutors charged Eppinger with racketeering, conspiracy, and murder for hire. In February 2004, Attorney General John Ashcroft signed a formal notice of intent to seek the death penalty. That notice was eventually withdrawn through plea negotiations. Eppinger accepted life in federal prison with no possibility of parole. The courthouse security leak was never prosecuted. Nobody was held accountable for it. Most people assumed that was the end. In 2020, COVID shut down normal prison operations. Visits stopped. Traditional smuggling routes slowed down. For most inmates, it was just a bad year. For Eppinger, it was an opportunity. He organized a fraud operation involving at least 30 inmates and outside associates, filing fake unemployment claims using stolen identities and collecting federal pandemic relief money, the kind set up for people who had actually lost their jobs. He ran it from inside a maximum security federal facility, communicating through smuggled devices coordinated with people on the outside. When investigators dismantled the scheme and started building fraud charges, Eppinger responded by confessing to the 5 murders from the 1990s. Voluntarily, in detail. Cases that had been open since 1991 were closed because the man responsible decided it was a good time to bring them up. He was already serving life with no parole. The 5 additional 25-year sentences, 125 years stacked on top of a life sentence, changed nothing about when he gets out. Whether the confessions were a negotiating move, a way to protect associates from heavier charges, or simply a man in his 60s deciding his record should reflect the full picture, the result is the same. As of 2025, Paul Eppinger is 64 years old, still in federal custody, and technically sentenced to more years than any human being has ever lived. Number 1. Jessie Chino, Con Ui. On February 25, 2013, in a housing unit at USP Canaan Federal Prison in Waymart, Pennsylvania, a corrections officer named Eric Williams walked up a metal staircase alone. He was 34 years old. He'd been at the prison for less than 2 years. He never made it back down. The man who killed him was Jessie Con Ui, a 36-year-old inmate known as Chino. Con Ui was born in Manila, Philippines, in 1977. His mother married an American soldier, and the family moved to Rome, New York, when he was around 9. By his late teens, he was already in and out of the system. He got out in 1999 and lasted about 3 years on the outside. In August 2002, Con Ui lured a man named Carlos Garcia to a laundromat in Phoenix, Arizona. Garcia was someone he called a friend. Con Ui shot him multiple times. When Garcia tried to run, Con Ui chased him down and shot him 4 more times in the head. Garcia died on the floor of that laundromat. Con Ui walked away with a stronger reputation inside the New Mexican Mafia, a prison gang based out of Arizona. He was doing exactly what he was supposed to do. In 2003, federal agents arrested him on cocaine distribution charges. 11 years. While serving that sentence, investigators tied him to the Garcia murder. In 2008, an Arizona court added a life sentence on top. At that point, Con Ui was never getting out, and the record suggests he decided to stop pretending otherwise. By the time he arrived at USP Canaan, his disciplinary file had 11 serious violations in 4.5 years. Threats against staff, weapons, assaults. In 2010 at USP Pollock, he stabbed another inmate with a homemade knife. When investigators asked him why, he said it was just one of those days. In 2012, officials at Canaan twice recommended solitary confinement. Both times, the hearing officer reversed the decision and sent him back to general population. If those sentences had been served, Con Ui would still have been in solitary on February 25, 2013. He was not. The night before he killed Eric Williams, Williams had ordered a search of Con Ui's cell. Standard procedure. To Con Ui, it was disrespect, and in his world, disrespect had a price. On the night of February 25th, Con Ui hid at the top of a staircase and waited. When Williams came up, Con Ui knocked him down the steps, pinned him to the floor, and stabbed him somewhere between 129 and over 200 times. He stomped on his head. At some point during the attack, Con Ui reached into Williams's shirt pocket, pulled out a pack of gum, unwrapped a piece, and started chewing. Then he kept going. The whole thing lasted 11 minutes and was recorded on the prison's security cameras. More than 100 inmates were locked in nearby cells. Every cell had an emergency button. Nobody pressed one. Con Ui confessed within 48 hours. When investigators sat down with him, he told them, "I'm sorry, but I had to do what I had to do. I got tired of the disrespect from people like you." At trial in 2017, his own lawyers stood up in their opening statement and told the jury their client was guilty. They spent the rest of the trial trying to keep him off death row. 11 jurors voted for execution. 1 held out. The judge sentenced Con Ui to life without parole. He's now at ADX Florence in Colorado, the most secure federal prison in the country, locked in a concrete cell 23 hours a day. The one juror who voted against the death penalty later said she just couldn't bring herself to do it. Con Ui is still alive because of her. Eric Williams had 2 years on the job, 6 men, dozens of victims, and a system that, in almost every case, had every piece of information it needed, sometimes years in advance. That's what makes these stories worth telling. Thank you for watching all the way through. It genuinely means a lot to a small channel like ours. If you found this video worth your time, please consider subscribing. We're still growing, and every subscriber helps us keep doing the research that goes into videos like this one. If you want to go deeper, we have more true crime videos on the channel, each one built the same way. Real cases, real records, no filler. We'll see you in the next one.